On this edition of Native Report, we visit a coffee shop developed by a group of elders in northern Wisconsin.
We meet Richard Smith and his sister Bertha Christensen, both of whom served in the military during World War II.
And we interview actor Guerry Farmer.
We also learn something new about healthy living and hear from our elders on this edition of Native Report.
Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Blandin Foundation and the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation.
Welcome to Native Report. I'm Rita Aspinwall.
And I'm Ernie Stevens. Kubi's Coffee Shop on the Lakota Reservation is not your average coffee shop. They do offer the usual fare such as lattes, macchiatos, and teas, plus homemade sandwiches and baked goods. But what makes it so unique is that it was developed by a group of elders who volunteered their time so that a portion of their revenue goes towards small grants to assist local youth with their educational needs.
For many people, a cup of coffee is how they jumpstart their day. For a group of elders, a cup of coffee is how they reinvented themselves as entrepreneurs in a business venture that is more about giving back to the community than making a profit.
We became amateur baristas.
Faith Smith is one of 21 elders from the Lakota Nation in northern Wisconsin who wanted to do something about a failed business and an empty building at an intersection near the casino.
We had formed an elder council here at LCO and were active in providing support and criticism to our tribal government about the things that they were doing. And we'd asked them if we could take over the coffee shop. They agreed. Why I don't know, but they agreed to let us take it over, and really stood back and didn't try to interfere, didn't try to do anything. So we identified 21 people who each put in $150 as investors. So with that initial investment, we were able to buy supplies and pay the initial bill. So all of us work as volunteers. We take turns coming in. This piece of property was purchased by the tribe maybe 10 years ago. That was a gas station before. This used to be a submarine shop, and the other end was rented by a bank from Hayward, that's now in Hayward. The tribe bought the property, took over the gas station. The sub shop moved out, and so they turned it into a coffee shop too, and it never really took. We all had to learn how to, whatever those skills are that we had in our working life before, we brought here to the coffee shop. It's been a great experience.
I'm part of the Elder Council. I'm with the Elder Association, and I work with Mona and Faith with the shop here.
All of the elders we talked with said they love working at Kubi's, and each contribute what they may know, such as accounting or marketing or even baking.
Well, I thought it was an exciting opportunity. Never having run a business like this, I thought it was going to be well worth the effort to put into it and see what we could do with it. I do a lot of the basic maintenance on the place and ordering. I'm proud of our abilities to make the coffees and the lattes and whatever we have to make, and then coming up with new drinks.
Faith called me up one day and said, "You know that empty shop that's on the corner? We should open it." I said, "Okay." I do the books. I keep track of all of our expenses and all the money that comes in, and hopefully it balances, and it does. I do that, and I do a majority of the shopping. And of course, you know, we all do some baking and some soup making, just a little bit of everything. What I like about this idea and what got me to say yes so quickly is she said, "We'll give the money back to the community."
And they do so by providing scholarships to students who may need financial aid. Another way these elders help support the community is by providing employment to LCO youth.
Say they're going to school, but they had to buy tires this month. They can't afford to buy their science book. They could come in and ask us, and we could buy their science book for them. The other thing that we're doing, and this is the most fun for me, because you write a check for somebody's book. Well, that's nice, but you don't see it. But we have these TANF workers here, and we watch them blossom.
I work with the elders, and I really like it. I knew about Coobies, but I wasn't sure about the whole background of it, that they're volunteers, and I don't know, I just didn't really know about it until I started working here. And I knew more and more about it. I like to make the sodas, and we usually do syrup. There's flavored syrup, and then we do club soda, and that makes our soda.
Our revenues are not big, they're small, but the investment goes back into the community. It's a part of tribal values of always reaching back and making sure that those who have less, who need more sometimes, that we've got their hand. We're a part of this community. The people who come here are visitors who come just in the summer. They're residents, people from LCO, tribal members, non-tribal members. It's a great place, very comfortable. It reminds me of Cheers, where everybody knows your name.
An electrocardiogram is also called an EKG or ECG, and it records the electrical signals from your heart. This is a fairly common test and is done to detect heart problems. An EKG is a painless test, and the results are usually available right away. Electrodes are sticky pads that can detect electrical signals, and they are placed on your chest and sometimes on your arms and legs. There are usually 10 electrodes that read electrical activity of your heart from 12 different directions. There is no risk of getting a shock, as the electrodes only read signals and do not send them. Each beat of your heart is triggered by special cells in the right upper chamber of your heart, and an EKG can record the timing and strength of those signals as they move through your heart. An EKG can detect an abnormal rhythm or a fast or slow heart rate, and can also see if there has been a heart attack in the past or if one is currently happening. It can detect ischemia or lack of blood flow to the heart muscle itself. Having a previous EKG to compare to is always helpful. You will need an EKG if you have any of the following symptoms: chest pain, shortness of breath, heart palpitations, dizziness, lightheadedness, or confusion, rapid pulse, slow pulse, weakness, fatigue, or a decline in the ability to exert yourself. If you have an abnormal heart rhythm that comes and goes, it might not be picked up in the short time during an EKG, and you may need a different type of heart monitor. A Holter monitor records a continuous EKG for 24 or 48 hours. Wires from the electrodes on your chest go to a battery-operated recording device that is worn on a strap or fits in your pocket. You can go about your normal activities as long as the monitor and electrodes stay dry. You will be asked to keep track of your symptoms and what time they occur and what you were doing at the time. The recording will be read to try to figure out the cause of your symptoms. If your symptoms might not happen in 48 hours, an event monitor is the next step. This is generally worn for 30 days and records only if you have symptoms, and you have to push a button to record at those times, and it records for a few minutes. Some monitors automatically start recording if they sense an abnormal heart rate. The recordings are sent in by phone and are read by a doctor, usually a cardiologist. If symptoms occur most often during exercise, then a stress test may be ordered. This is a continuous EKG done while you walk on a treadmill or ride an exercise bike. If you are unable to do either of those things, an injection can be given that mimics the effects of exercise on your heart. If any of these tests are abnormal, that can lead to further testing. That gets more complicated, and we can discuss those in future episodes. Remember to call an elder. They've been waiting for your call. I'm Dr. Arnie Vainio, and this is Health Matters.
Bertha Christensen and Richard Smith are siblings from the Lakota Ray Reservation. Both joined the military to help their country during World War II. Bertha in the Army Air Corps and Richard in the Navy. We are honored to have had the opportunity to interview them about their experiences, and even more so to bring you their stories.
Having brunch together at Kubi's Coffee on the Lakota Ray Nation in northern Wisconsin, siblings Bertha Christensen and Richard Smith are worlds and generations away from a time when both served during World War II.
I know I was in Flanders when Pearl Harbor was bombed. I was in my last year in high school. I was walking down the street and I seen this office recruit. And I thought, I'm going to walk in and see what they have to offer. So I walked in, signed up, went home and told Dad and Ma. Off I went. At that time, I still wanted to be a nurse, so I joined the medical corps. So I always worked in the hospital when I was in the service.
While Bertha enlisted in the Army Air Corps, her brother Richard enlisted in the Navy.
War was on, and I enlisted when I was 17.
Please tell me about your basic training.
Well, we had an old chief, and he was really a good guy. He must have realized that we're going off to war.
Their individual experiences were very different from each other in most every aspect, yet each played a crucial role in the overall war effort. Bertha was a nurse's aide at base hospitals in Casper, Wyoming, and Colorado Springs, Colorado, while Richard served in the South Seas.
It was nice. Met a lot of GIs that were very nice. When we first went in, we were new to the armed forces. They used to call us wackies. They didn't appreciate us being in the Army, but they soon got used to us being around. We took care of the GIs, the ones that weren't able to take care of themselves. We helped and brought their meals and gave them a bath and walked them around. Some of them were injured, not too many, but a few came back injured. They stopped on their way en route, and we took care of them. We used to wonder, we'd get acquainted with guys on the base and go to dances with them and picnics, horseback riding. Soon they were gone, be new GIs coming in. They were all sent overseas. And I never had a problem with being American Indian. I never heard a word, not in all that time.
I would blow a deck and we heard something smash into the ship and the lights went out and everything, and I ran up to my gun up there, but we had 20 millimeters all along the side, so I ran up and got mine. Mine is all smashed up because the plane hit right below the deck there. Been there 5 minutes earlier, I'd been made into bacon, I guess. Another plane was coming in on us, and we had all guns were going in because we all aware of it and shot that plane down.
His convoy was sent to Iwo Jima, and it was there he witnessed one of the most iconic moments of the war.
And he looked around, there were ships from all over that waiting to go in. Well, they had a lot of them were supply ships, and we went ashore. Remember, we got hit. We got in, we let the tanks off, finally got the door open, and I saw the flag raised there. I borrowed a pair of binoculars and I was watching the flag raising. Once in a while I think about it, yeah. In a way, that was a glorious time. Everybody was together and everybody was working good and just a lot different.
I thought I was doing something for myself, and I would write home, but I'd get lonesome all right, but you get over it. I had a good life.
How important is it for our young people to know the ways of the old people, I guess?
It's very important because without it, without that knowledge and wisdom, you get caught up in a lifestyle that's not our lifestyle. And that's subject to using alcohol and drugs. So if they know their ways that's been given to us, that's been handed down to us, and then they'll have a good life. So, and I know it's really hard out there because there's not that many elders that are been here, long enough to share those, but with the ones that have. And then, so that's why I like working with our youth and culture programs and helping out that way. Do pipe ceremonies, run sweat lodges. I work with the Gukumis in Dal up in Electroflambeau. And I'm going out there to help teach ribbon shirts and skirts for the women. So.
Guerry Farmer is a Canadian actor and musician. He is widely recognized as a pioneer in the development of First Nations media in Canada and is the founding director of an urban Indian radio network. We interviewed Guerry to learn more about his multifaceted career.
Guerry Farmer is probably best known for his roles in Smoke Signals and Powwow Highway. But what may not be well known is that he's a strong advocate for Native issues. He recently visited the University of Minnesota Duluth campus, where he gave a presentation about his activism and his career in film and other media.
People know me as an actor, so that kind of attracts the audience sometimes. But, here we're looking at movies 20 years old, Makes me feel like, geez, I should be bringing something new. There's some great new Native films out there. But I always try to inspire the youth to look at media and the arts as a means of change. And then the regular kids, I have a lot to say to them too, because they live in their world's kind of controlled, so I try to create some objectivity for them, so they can look at the world a little bit more objective and not be so afraid. I started a national radio system in Canada. I'm the one that won the license for Aboriginal People's Television Network. It's right up there with CBC, CTV. That was an amazing win. But I had already won several large urban radio FM stations. I won an AM as well. But I was trying to build a national radio system because I thought, well, this is how we change the world. If we can create an audience, then we can actually have an impact from our perspective as Native people, which is different than the consumer perspective, or whatever you want to call it, the corporate culture, the mainstream, right? I feel like there's room for our voice.
But Aboriginal Voices Radio Network's license was revoked by the Canadian Radio, Television and Telecommunications Committee in June of 2015. But that hasn't deterred Guerry.
We got to have a voice, right? And we still don't. Many of our communities don't have any voice. There still is some FM signals allowed, some low power FM, and that's how I've been attacking it for years for communities. If we can get that low power started in your community, then we can begin to deal with things that are important to us. 50% incidence of diabetes? Yeah, we got to deal with it. The NPR audience here in Duluth might not want to deal with that. They don't care about necessarily. I mean, they do. It's a storyline, but it's not a consistent socialization to making your life better through living with diabetes, right? So that's why we need our own media.
I had a sign.
That determination for broadcast media to include Native programming, or at least tell Native stories, is also evident through his film work.
As an actor, I've been dealing with Native hard stories for my whole career. There was nothing funny when I started. Absolutely nothing funny to attack as an actor. You need balance to hold an audience. You just can't be down on this is how it was, and down, it's really bad, down, it's still down. Down, we're not getting up, down, you have to be inspired. You have to find the humor. You have to. So it took years for us as Native people to find that ability to tell a story, still make them laugh, still have the same impact of what we're dealing with here, in terms of loss of culture. It's time that we have to light the fire and start telling the reality of our lives. We're not dealing with reality. We get all this fiction at us every day to keep us from the truth, and I think it's time, Native people, we're not afraid, We're not afraid to stand up, but let's stand up with a story on our shoulder, that helps socialize people to a new way. In the early days of the 70s, when we first tried to get the people to write, the stories were hard. They're all hard stories. But, Powell Highway was kind of a native, a native author who kind of vanity pressed, and some screenwriters found it and made a movie of it. Smoke Signals, obviously, to me, was kind of an adaptation of Powell Highway in a new generation with a little different twist. And then, but to me, the ultimate film was kind of, for me as an actor, was with Jim Jarmusch making a film called Dead Man with Johnny Depp. It was like an acid Western, a kind of revisionist telling of Western, the Western itself. It was good. The things are changing, The writing's changing. It's a little bit more informed. You're working with a lot of younger talent now as an actor, potentially.
Guerry grew up on the Six Nations Grand River First Nation in Canada, and his heart is with all Native people all over the globe. He gladly makes presentations, such as the one in the UMD library.
I've been to New Zealand and I've been to other Indigenous communities. I was a good friend of Marshall McLuhan. I used to belong to his club and still know his daughter, Elizabeth, is a dear friend. The medium is the message, right? And so supporting, young people in the arts, like trying to help them find their way, because there's no coming together of the arts. And from that, different things, projects will happen, around the world and the globe.
The Minnesota Department of Transportation, Minnesota Indian Affairs Council, and Office of State Archaeologists have been working jointly since June 2017 to respectfully identify and recover human remains that were disturbed from a historic cemetery adjacent to a construction project on Highway 23 near Mission Creek. This project is in the Fond du Lac neighborhood on the west end of Duluth, Minnesota. The cemetery was disturbed during excavation for a bridge replacement project. At the time of the disturbance, work on the project ceased. MnDOT Commissioner Charlie Zell met with the Fond du Lac Reservation Business Committee leadership and tribal members. MnDOT took responsibility for the incident and made a commitment to address the issue. The project agencies have been consulting and coordinating with the Fond du Lac Band Lake Spirit Chippewa to ensure that human remains found on the site are handled respectfully and in a dignified manner. The remains will be reinterred in the cemetery area once the recovery work is complete. In the past year, significant progress has been made at the site. 24/7 security and fencing has been provided. Stockpiles of material from the cemetery have been protected from the elements. The soil around the graves in the cemetery area has been stabilized to prevent further impacts to graves. Utilities and access for residents in the neighborhood have been restored to a point where year-round access can be provided. Erosion control has been established. A temporary pedestrian and bicycle route has been established around the project area. Processes have been established to recover the cemetery material. Approximately 20% of the cemetery material that was disturbed has been processed to recover human remains, grave goods, and other artifacts. An archaeological survey of the project area has been completed to help define where the cemetery is and where it is not. Data has been collected to further define the boundaries of the known cemetery area. A shelter has been constructed to allow cemetery recovery activities to occur during inclement weather. Still, work remains on this site. There is approximately 800 cubic yards of cemetery material that still needs to be processed to recover human remains, grave goods, and other artifacts. The cemetery area needs to be restored, and the human remains need to be reinterred. Once this work is complete, MnDOT can begin developing alternatives to address the risk of flooding due to debris plugging the existing bridge. This process will take time, and the final time frame cannot be determined at this date.
For more information about Native Report or the stories we've covered, look for us on the web at nativereport.org, on Facebook, and on YouTube.
Thank you for spending this time with your friends and neighbors in Indian Country. I'm Ernie Stevens.
And I'm Rita Aspinwall. Join us next time for another Native Report.
Rita Aspinwall is an enrolled member of the Fond du Lac Band of Lake Superior, Chippewa, and is an ICWA social worker with Fond du Lac Social Services. Ernie Stevens is a member of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin and is a film and television producer. Production of Native Report is made possible by grants from the Blandin Foundation and the Duluth Superior Area Community Foundation.